September 1946, Monterey coast. Week 4 Stephan Mitchell stood frozen on the deck of the Second Chance. The net had slipped from his hands, his eyes fixed on the horizon. The sound of an engine was approaching, loud, irregular, threatening. "A plane is coming," he whispered. "The Japanese are coming." But the Japanese weren't coming. It was just Marco's boat. The Queen of the Sea had left the harbor and was heading south. The engine noise was loud because Marco was going fast, that's all. But Stephan's brain didn't process it that way. His brain was still running on a 12-year war program. Engine noise were danger. Loud noise were bomb. Approaching noise. Death. He wanted to shout, "Take cover! Everyone take cover!" But no sound came out of his mouth. He just tried to breathe, but no air was coming in. His chest tightened. His heart was beating so fast it felt like it would explode. His hands trembled. His knees trembled. His whole body went into convulsions. "Stephan!" Giuseppe's voice came from afar. The old fisherman was shouting from his own boat. "Stephan! Are you okay?" Was he okay? No, he wasn't okay. He never would be. The engine noise grew closer. Marco's boat passed by the Second Chance. Marco waved, smiled, shouted something, probably good morning or good fishing, but Stephan didn't hear him. He only heard the engine, and that sound turned into other sounds in his head. Explosions, screams. "Medic! Call a medic!" He collapsed on the deck. He held his head in his hands. He closed his eyes tightly. "It's not real," he whispered to himself. "It's not real. You're in Monterey, 1946. The war is over. It's not real, but it felt real." He smelled the soil of Okinawa. He smelled the blood. He saw the smoking wreckage. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't breathe at all. Panic. It was a panic attack. He had learned that word in the war. Some soldiers experienced these after the war. They called it bomb shock or combat intoxication, but the real name was post-traumatic stress. And Stephan was having a full-blown attack. The boat rocked. Someone had come out on deck. "Giuseppe. Stephan, hear me." Giuseppe's voice was calm but firm. "Breathe. With me. In, out, in, out." Stephan tried to focus on Giuseppe's voice. "In, out, in, out." Slowly, his breathing returned to normal. His heart rate slowed. The trembling subsided. He opened his eyes. Giuseppe was crouched in front of him, his hand on his shoulder. "I'm here," Giuseppe said. "You're safe. You're in Monterey. You're with me." Stephan nodded but couldn't speak. He was still somewhere between reality and a dream. Giuseppe held out the water bottle. "Drink." Slowly, Stephan drank the water. The cold water burned his throat, but it also woke him up, brought him back to reality. "It was Marco's engine," said Giuseppe. "Just Marco. No danger." "I know," said Stephan, his voice cracked. "I know, but my brain doesn't know." "My brain is still there," Giuseppe nodded, understanding. "The war hasn't let you go." "No," said Stephan. "It hasn't, and it won't." There was silence. Only the sound of the waves. That familiar, soothing sound. "How often does it happen?" asked Giuseppe. Stephan thought. "How often? Every day? Once a week?" "It varies," he said. "Sometimes days go by with nothing. Then suddenly, a sound, a smell, an image. And I'm back there again." "Where?" "In Okinawa, or Iwo Jima, or Guadalcanal." Stephan spread his hands, looked at them. They were still trembling. "I fought for 12 years, Giuseppe." 12 years. Every day I was beside death. How can you expect that to leave you unaffected?" "I'm not expecting it to," said Giuseppe. "But I thought you were healing." "You're fishing. You're socializing. You're living in your cabin. You look fine." "On the outside," said Stephan painfully. "On the outside I look fine. But inside," he pounded his chest. "Inside there's still war. Every day, every night." Giuseppe took a long breath. Then he sat down next to Stephan. The two men sat side by side on the deck, looking out at the sea. "You know," Giuseppe said after a while, "I lived through that too." In World War I, in Italy. I was a young man, 18 years old. I went to the front. It lasted 2 years. And when I came back, I was just like you. Stephan turned to Giuseppe in surprise. You too? Yes, said Giuseppe. I heard explosions where there were none. I woke up at night screaming. My hands were shaking. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. 2 years passed, like hell. How did it pass? How did you get better? Giuseppe took out his pipe, lit it. He puffed on it. Time, he said. Time and patience. And the sea. The sea saved me. Every day I got on the boat, I went out to sea. And at sea, slowly the sound stopped. The images faded. And one day I woke up and didn't hear the explosions. That day I knew I was healing. But did it go away completely? Giuseppe shook his head. No, it didn't go away completely. Sometimes when I hear a sudden noise, I still flinch. Sometimes I'm still fighting in my dreams, but now I can control it. I understand that the dream isn't real, and I can move on. Stephan digested these words. Being able to control it, being able to distinguish between reality and dreams, being able to move on. Will you teach me how to do it? He asked. Of course, said Giuseppe, but it won't be easy, and it won't be quick. But we can do it, together. Stephan nodded. Okay, I'll try. Giuseppe stood up. That's enough sea for today. Let's go back to the harbor. I want to show you something. When they returned to the harbor, Giuseppe took Stephan outside the town to a small cabin. The cabin was in a wooded area, far from the sea. What is this place? Asked Stephan. My refuge, said Giuseppe. When I came back from the war, I would come here. When I wanted silence, when I wanted to be alone. This was my place of peace. They went inside. The cabin was simple, a bed, a table, a few chairs. There were old photographs on the wall. Giuseppe was young, in uniform, serious-faced. This is me, said Giuseppe, touching the photograph. Since an Italian army, before going to the front. Stephan looked at the photograph. Giuseppe was so young he was almost unrecognizable. But that look in his eyes, that look was familiar. The look in every soldier's eyes, determination, fear, the march into the unknown. And this, said Giuseppe, showing another photo, after the war. 1919, when I came to America. In the second photo, Giuseppe looked older. Only 2 years had passed, but it was as if he had aged 10 years. The light in his eyes had faded. The expression on his face was empty. War changes you, said Giuseppe. You go into war young, but you come back old. Old and broken. Then what? Asked Stephan. How did you go on? Then, said Giuseppe, showing a third photograph, I found Maria. In the photograph, Giuseppe and Maria, young and happy, were smiling and embracing each other. Maria saved me, said Giuseppe, his voice filled with deep love. She loved me, she waited patiently for me, she gave me time. And slowly I became the old Giuseppe again. Not completely, but a version of him. Stephan looked at the photos. Soldier, a survivor, a lover. Giuseppe's journey felt very familiar to him. I lost Maria, said Stephan. There's no one to save me. Wrong, said Giuseppe firmly. You are here. You are your own savior. Maria helped me, yes. But I did the real work. I faced myself. I faced my pain. I faced my past. And you will too. How? Giuseppe sat down at the table and motioned for Stephan to sit. By talking, by writing, by telling. You will bring out everything you saw in the war, everything you felt, everything you experienced. You will not keep it inside. But I can't talk about these things. It's too painful. I know, said Giuseppe. But painful things hurt more when they're kept inside. When they're brought out, they slowly begin to heal. Stephan hesitated. To talk, to tell, to share his war memories. Could he do it? One step at a time, said Giuseppe. Today one memory, tomorrow another memory. There's no need to rush. Okay, said Stephan slowly. I'll try. Good, said Giuseppe. Now tell me a memory. From the war. Any memory you want. Stephan took a deep breath. Which memory should he tell? There were thousands of memories. Thousands of images, sounds, smells. Then one came to mind. Guadalcanal, 1943. There was a kid, he began, his voice trembling. A soldier, 19 years old. His name was Billy Henderson. He was from Texas. He grew up on a farm. It was his first battle. He paused. His throat tightened. Go on, Giuseppe said softly. We were in the trenches. The Japanese were attacking. There was fire everywhere. Billy was next to me. He was scared, trembling. Colonel, he said, am I going to die? And I said, no, Billy, you won't die. I'll protect you. His eyes filled with tears. But he continued. 5 minutes later, a bullet came. It hit Billy in the chest. He fell. He was bleeding. There was a lot of blood. I called for the medic, but it was too late. Billy died in my arms. His last words were, will you tell my mother I love her? He paused. Tears streamed down his cheeks. And I told his mother. After the war, I went to Texas. I found Billy's mother. I told her what happened, and she hugged me. She cried, and she said a thank you. Knowing my son wasn't alone in his final moments brings me comfort. Giuseppe listened quietly. He didn't speak, didn't judge, just listened. But I, Stephan continued, I feel guilty because I promised him, you won't die, I said. But he died. He died under my watch, and I couldn't save him. You did what you could, said Giuseppe. It wasn't enough, said Stephan. It didn't have to be enough, said Giuseppe. You're not God. You can't control everything. Billy died because he fought, and war kills. Not you. Silence enveloped the entire house. A thick, heavy, suffocating silence. Stephan slowly walked into the living room. He sat down on the couch. Margaret's couch. He could still smell her scent. Lavender and vanilla, Margaret, he whispered. I'm here. I'm finally here. There was no answer. Only silence. He stood up and went to the kitchen. He looked at the table. 4 chairs. One for Margaret, one for Thomas, one for Emily, one for himself. Now the chairs were empty. I'm sorry, he said aloud. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry for everything. Tears streamed down his cheeks, but he let them flow. He was no longer afraid of his tears. He climbed the stairs. Upstairs, there were 3 rooms. The bedroom, Thomas's room, Emily's room. First, he entered Thomas's room. The walls were covered with airplane posters. Toy soldiers were lined up on the bed. On the desk was a half-finished homework assignment. Stephan picked up a toy soldier. A tiny plastic soldier. Just like real soldiers, uniformed, armed. Son, he said, you wanted to be a soldier, just like your father. But I didn't want that, because I knew what war was, and I didn't want you to see it either. But you didn't see anything. You were only 10 years old. You were just a child. He put the soldier back in its place. Then he went to Emily's room. The room was pink and white. A doll lay on the bed. On the wall hung pictures Emily had drawn. One was a family portrait. Mother, father, brother, and herself. They were all smiling. Stephan took down the picture and held it in his hand. My daughter, he said. You were the youngest. You were the most innocent. And you didn't deserve this. None of you deserved it. But life isn't fair. It never was. He pressed the picture to his chest and cried. Quietly, deeply, letting out all his pain. Minutes passed. Maybe half an hour. Finally, his tears dried. His breathing returned to normal. He put the photo in his pocket. Then he went to the bedroom. The bed was made neatly. Margaret always made the bed neatly. On the nightstand was a photo frame. A wedding photo. Stephan and Margaret, young and happy, smiling and embracing each other. Margaret, said Stephan, taking the photo in his hand. I still love you. Every day, every moment, but not with pain anymore. I love you with love, because you gave me so much. You gave me happiness. You gave me children. You gave me purpose, and I am grateful. I'm sorry we couldn't spend more time together, but I am grateful for the time we did have. He kissed the photo and put it back. Then he went to the closet. Margaret's clothes were still hanging inside. He took one out and smelled it. Lavender. Always lavender. Goodbye, Margaret, he said. You will always be in my heart, but now I have to leave you here. This house is no longer a home a memory. And memories cannot be moved. They can only be remembered. He put the dress back. He closed the closet. He left the room. He went downstairs to the living room. He looked around one last time. Every corner held a memory. Every object told a story. But now those stories were over. It was time to write new stories. She took an envelope out of her pocket. Inside was a letter. She had written it last night. She left it on the kitchen table. The letter read, "To whom it may concern, this house was once our home. Margaret Ann Mitchell, Thomas James Mitchell, Emily Rose Mitchell, and mine. In April 1945, I lost them. In enemy sabotage, I can't keep this house anymore. There are too many memories, too much pain, but also too much love. I am giving this house to a family who needs it. Maybe a veteran returning from war. Maybe someone who lost their home. I don't know. But this house should be a home again. It should be full of love, laughter, and life again. I have only one request. Plant the tomato seeds in the garden. Margaret loved them, and maybe every year when you harvest tomatoes, you'll remember her. Goodbye, house. Thank you for the good days. I'm sorry for the bad days." Stephan Mitchell, he left the letter, walked toward the door. He stopped at the threshold, looked back one last time. "Goodbye," he said. "May you all be at peace." Then he left, closed the door, and he left. He left the house. He left the past. He left the pain. When he got back to the taxi, Giuseppe was waiting. He looked at Stephan's face and understood. "How did it go?" he asked. "Hard," said Stephan. "Very hard. But it had to be done. And now I can let go. I can truly let go." Giuseppe nodded. "Good, because you can't go to the future without leaving the past behind." The taxi driver asked, "Where to?" "The train station," said Stephan. "We're going home." "Home?" said the taxi driver. "But isn't this your home?" "No," said Stephan, smiling. "My home is in Monterey, by the sea. That's my home." On the train, on the way back, Stephan turned to his notebook. He opened the last page, and he wrote, "Today I went to Baltimore. I went to my old home. I remembered Margaret, Thomas, Emily. I cried. I said goodbye, and I left. I am no longer that Stephan. I am not Colonel Mitchell. I am not a husband and a father. But that's not sad. Because now I am a new Stephan. I am Fisherman Stephan. I am Giuseppe's student. I am a member of the Monterey community. And most importantly, I am the survivor. Not just alive, but living. Tomorrow I will return to Monterey. I will board the second chance. I will set sail. I will fish. I will feel the sun. I will listen to the waves. And I will live. For them, for myself, for the future. Because life goes on. With pain, with joy, with memories, with hopes. And I am a part of this life. Forever. When they returned to Monterey, Marco, Daniel, Carlos, Samuel, Martha, they were all waiting on the pier. They greeted Stephan, hugged him, and said, "Welcome home." And Stephan realized at that moment, this was truly his home. Not Baltimore, Monterey. These people were truly family. Not by blood, but by heart. That evening, they had a meeting at Martha's coffee shop. Stephan talked about Baltimore, how he left, how he said goodbye, how he left it behind. Everyone listened. No one judged. They just understood. "You are brave," said Martha, "because facing the past is harder than fighting." "Yes," said Giuseppe, "and you faced it. And you won." That night, walking back to his cabin, Stephan looked up at the sky. The stars were shining. The moon was full. The sea had turned silver. "Margaret, Thomas, Emily," he said aloud. "I'm not saying I'm completely healed now, because healing is not a destination, it's a journey. But I am saying this, I am alive. Truly alive, and I am living for you, because you would have wanted that, and I am giving you that gift." He entered his cabin. He turned to the last page of the notebook. A blank page, a new beginning, and he wrote, "Today I let go of the past. Tomorrow I will look to the future." And that is enough. That will always be enough. Stephan Mitchell's journey did not end here. Ahead of him lay many more days, many more seas, many more sunrises. But the most important battle had been won, confronting the trauma. Making peace with the past, and forgiving himself. The war had taken everything from him. But the sea had given him a reason to live. The wounds were still there, they always would be. But they were no longer bleeding. They were healing, slowly but surely, and Stephan finally understood. Surviving wasn't enough. He had to live, every day, every moment, despite all the pain, because living was the greatest victory. Victory over trauma, loss, and pain, and Stephan had won that victory. "Excellent," he said. "This is a very important step. You are beginning to forgive yourself, and that is the heart of healing." "But I still feel guilty," said Stephan, "about their deaths." "You always will," said Dr. Foster. "But that guilt will change over time. It won't be a burden to wash away, but a feeling that reminds you. It will remind you of your humanity, of compassion, of love. And is that enough?" "It's enough," said Dr. Foster, "because life isn't about being perfect. It's about living humanly." Stephan let those words sink in. Living humanly. Maybe that was his new purpose. Not to be a perfect soldier, but to be a good person. That evening, while eating with Giuseppe, he told him about the progress at Dr. Foster's. "I'm proud of you," said Giuseppe. "You've made a lot of progress. And I know how hard it is, but you're doing it. Every day a little more. Because of you," said Stephan. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here." "Wrong," said Giuseppe. "You're here because of your own strength. I just showed you the way, but you were the one walking." That night, as Stephan sat in his cabin, he looked out the window. The moon was full and close, the sea shimmering with silver light, and for the first time in a long while, he thought about the future. Not tomorrow, but a year from now, 5 years from now. Where did he see himself? Still in Monterey? Still a fisherman? Maybe, or maybe something else. But what mattered was that he could think about the future. He wasn't stuck in the past, and that was a big step forward. He turned to the notebook and wrote, "Today, I wrote a letter to myself, to my old self, to Colonel Mitchell. I said goodbye to him. I thanked him. I let him go. Now I am the new Stephan. Fisherman Stephan, healing Stephan, living Stephan, and that is enough. It will always be enough." November 1946, Monterey months had passed since Stephan arrived in Monterey. In May, he had arrived a broken man. In November, he was here, slowly healing. He still wasn't perfect. He still had bad days, but now those days didn't destroy him. They just slowed him down, and the next day, he could get up and carry on. 8 weeks of therapy with Dr. Foster had changed a lot. The grounding technique now came automatically. When he had a flashback, he immediately used his 5 senses to bring himself back to the present. His conversations with Giuseppe nourished his soul. Marco, Daniel, Samuel, they all shared their stories, and Stephan wasn't just listening anymore. He was telling his own story too, comfortably, openly. One November morning, as he set out to sea, he noticed something. At the helm of the Second Chance, for the first time, he didn't think of Margaret. For the first time, he didn't think of the war. He simply lived in that moment. He felt the sea, the wind, the sun, and that was a small miracle. That evening, Giuseppe made a suggestion. "Stephan," he said, "I want to take you on a trip." "Where?" asked Stephan. "To Baltimore." Stephan's heart tightened. "Baltimore? Why?" "Because," said Giuseppe, "you still have something left behind in the past. Your home, your memories, and maybe you need to face them. One last time, I'm not ready." "When will you be ready?" asked Giuseppe. "A year from now? 10 years from now?" "Never. No, Stephan. Now is the time. You are strong. You can face it." Stephan hesitated. Baltimore. That wooden house. Margaret's garden. Thomas's room. Emily's piano. It was all there. Or maybe it was all gone. He didn't know. Because after the war, he had never gone back. Will you come with me? Stephan asked. Of course, said Giuseppe. You're not alone. You never were. And 2 weeks later, Stephan and Giuseppe were on the train. From Monterey to San Francisco, then to Chicago, then to Baltimore. A 4-day journey. Stephan watched America pass by the train window. Mountains, plains, cities, towns. Everything had changed. The war had changed the country. It had changed people. Giuseppe sat quietly beside him. He read a book, sometimes slept, sometimes just looked outside. But he was always there. A silent support. Giuseppe, Stephan said on the evening of the 3rd day. Why are you doing this? Why did you come with me? You have your work, your boat. Giuseppe closed his book and turned to Stephan. Because you are my family, he said simply. And family is there for you in hard times. You are here for me. I am here for you. Stephan's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, he said. Thank you for everything. You're welcome, said Giuseppe. But don't thank me yet, because the hardest part is yet to come. Baltimore greeted them cold and foggy. November had covered the city in a gray blanket. The trees were bare, the streets wet, people walking hurriedly. When Stephan stepped out of the train station, a strange feeling came over him. He had lived in this city for 12 years. He had married Margaret here. Thomas was born here. Emily grew up here, but now it felt foreign. Like a different city, a different life. They hailed a taxi. He gave the driver the address. 247 Brookfield Avenue. The taxi drove through the city. Familiar streets, familiar buildings, but everything was different. Or maybe Stephan was different. Finally, they arrived. That wooden house. 2 stories, painted blue with a white picket fence. But it wasn't blue anymore. The paint was faded, the fence was broken, the yard was neglected. Wait here, Stephan told the taxi driver. I won't be long. Giuseppe looked at Stephan. You want to go in alone? Yes, said Stephan. I have to do this by myself. I understand, said Giuseppe. I'll be here. Call me if you need anything. Stephan got out of the taxi. He walked slowly toward the house. His heart was racing, his hands were shaking, but he kept going. He reached the fence. His hand reached for the gate he used to open. The gate creaked. The same sound. The same creak. He entered the garden. Margaret's tomato garden was now overgrown with weeds. Thomas's swing was rusted. The stone path Emily had drawn was cracked. Everything was ruined. He reached the front door. He still had the key. He always carried it in his pocket. He inserted it into the lock and turned it. The door opened. He stepped inside, and time stood still. Everything was the same. The furniture was in its place. The curtains Margaret had sewn hung in the windows. Thomas's toys were in the corner. Emily's piano was in the living room. It was as if no one had left. As if the family were still here, but they weren't. In the 3rd week of October, the weather began to change in Monterey. The winds grew stronger, the waves grew bigger, the sky clouded over more often. Autumn was coming. But for Stephan, the change of season wasn't just about the weather. There was an inner change, too. After his conversations with Giuseppe, he felt different. Lighter, more hopeful, more alive. The flashbacks still came. The nightmares were still there. But now he could control them. The in and out technique, the ability to distinguish reality from dreams and talking. It all helped. One morning, as he was heading out to sea, he noticed something. At the helm of the Second Chance, he noticed his hands weren't shaking. When the engine roared to life, he noticed he wasn't panicking. He just noticed he was in the moment. Giuseppe, he said that evening, I think I'm making progress. I'm really making progress, Giuseppe smiled. I know, I can see it. In your face, in your posture, in everything. But it's still hard, said Stephan. Every day I still think about the war. Every day I think about them. And you always will, said Giuseppe. But here's the difference. Your thoughts no longer hold you captive. You control your thoughts. That week Martha suggested something. Stephan, she said one evening, there's a psychologist in town, Dr. Raymond Foster. He works with war veterans. Maybe you should talk to him. Stephan hesitated. Psychologist. Mental health. These words were still taboo in 1946, especially for soldiers. There was a culture that said, soldiers don't go to psychologists, but Giuseppe was supportive. Go, he said. It can't hurt to talk. And Dr. Foster is a good man. I went 2 years ago. He helped me. You went? Stephan asked, surprised. Yes, said Giuseppe. After Maria died, I was in a bad way. I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't talking. And one day, Martha took me to Dr. Foster. We talked once a week for 6 months, and slowly I got better. And now I go when I need to, said Giuseppe. Maybe once or twice a year, just to talk. Sometimes a professional ear makes a difference. Stephan thought about it. Maybe Giuseppe was right. Maybe professional help was a good thing. Okay, he said. I'll go. Dr. Raymond Foster's office was in the center of town. It was a small, unassuming building. The interior was warm and invitingly decorated. Comfortable chairs, wooden shelves, a view of the sea from the window. Dr. Foster was a man in his 50s, bearded, with kind eyes. He greeted Stephan at the door and shook his hand. Welcome, Mr. Mitchell, he said. Giuseppe mentioned you. Please have a seat. Stephan sat down on the chair. He was uncomfortable, tense. He didn't know what to say. Relax, said Dr. Foster, sitting down on the chair opposite him. This is a safe space. Everything you say will remain confidential, and I'm not judging. I'm just listening. Where should I start? Asked Stephan. Why did you come here? Asked Dr. Foster. Because, Stephan paused, because the war won't leave me alone. I have flashbacks. I have nightmares, and sometimes I can't tell reality from dreams. I see, said Dr. Foster, writing something in his notebook. How many years did you serve? 12 years, Marine, Pacific Theater. Which battles were you in? Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. Stephan listed them. Dr. Foster nodded. A lot of war. A lot of trauma. And your rank? Colonel, I was a company commander. So you had responsibility. You controlled men's lives. Yes, said Stephan, his voice cracking. And I lost most of them. 93 men died under my command. And you feel responsible? Yes, I was the commander. I was supposed to protect them, but I couldn't. Dr. Foster put down his pen and looked at Stephan. Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to ask you something. Are you God? Stephan was taken aback. What? No, of course not. Then why do you think you have to act like God? Why do you think you have to control everything? I was the commander. I had a responsibility. Yes, you had a responsibility, said Dr. Foster. But you also had limits, human limits. You couldn't stop a bullet. You couldn't redirect a bomb. You did the best you could, and sometimes even the best isn't enough. Because war is chaotic, uncontrollable, and losses are inevitable. Stephan listened to these words. They made sense, but emotionally it was hard to accept. But I promised them. I said, you'll survive. I said, you'll go home. And it was all a lie. No, Dr. Foster said firmly. It wasn't a lie. It was hope. You gave them hope. In the midst of war, in the midst of fear and chaos, you gave them hope. And that is the most important thing a commander can do. But they died. Yes, they died. And that is tragic. But you didn't kill them. The war killed them. And you didn't start that war. You just did your job. Stephan was silent. He thought. Maybe Dr. Foster was right. Maybe he shouldn't burden himself with so much responsibility. So now, said Dr. Foster, what is your purpose now? Why are you living? I don't know, said Stephan honestly. I lost my family. My career is over. My identity is gone. I just exist. Existing isn't enough, said Dr. Foster. Living requires a purpose, even a small one. Have you found yours? Stephan thought. Fishing, the sea, the community. Giuseppe, were these purposes? Maybe, he said. I fish, I help people. I connect with the community. These are small purposes. but they mean something to me. Good, said Dr. Foster. That's a good start. And over time, maybe you'll find bigger purposes. But for now, these small purposes will keep you going. The session lasted an hour. Finally, Dr. Foster made a suggestion. Mr. Mitchell, I recommend weekly sessions. For 6 months. 1 hour each week. We'll talk, process your memories, learn coping mechanisms, and slowly, you'll heal. 6 months, said Stephan. That's a long time. Healing takes time, said Dr. Foster. But each week you'll feel a little better. I promise, Stephan agreed. Okay, I'll try. When he left the office, he felt strangely relieved. Talking had helped. Dr. Foster's questions had cleared his head. Maybe, just maybe, professional help really worked. That week, a new element was added to Stephan's routine. Every Wednesday afternoon, he visited Dr. Foster. The first few sessions were difficult. The memories were painful. Talking was exhausting. But after the third session, something changed. Dr. Foster taught him a technique. Grounding. When you have a flashback, Dr. Foster said, use your 5 senses. See 5 things. Touch 4 things. Hear 3 things. Smell 2 things. Taste 1 thing. This brings you back to the present. It pulls you out of the past. Stephan tried the technique. In the next flashback, he applied it. See 5 things. The sea, the sky, the boat, the net, my hands. Touch 4 things. The rudder, the deck, the water, the wind. Hear 3 things. The waves, the seagulls, the engine. Smell 2 things. Salt, fish. Taste 1 thing. Saliva on my lips, and it worked. The flashback shortened. It lasted only 30 seconds, not 3 minutes. Excellent, said Dr. Foster when he heard this at the next session. You see, you can retrain your brain. Instead of getting stuck in the past, you can stay in the present. Stephan felt hopeful about this progress. Maybe he really could get better. Not completely, but better. In the 4th session, Dr. Foster suggested something else. Mr. Mitchell, I'm going to give you an assignment. Write a letter, but this time to yourself, to your pre-war self. Tell him what you've learned, what you've been through, who you are now. To my pre-war self, said Stephan, but that man is dead. Perhaps, said Dr. Foster, but a part of him is still inside you, and maybe you need to say goodbye to him, or thank him, or forgive him. That night, Stephan turned to his notebook. He opened a new page, and he began to write, Dear Stephan, or maybe I should say, Dear Colonel Mitchell, because you are still that man, young, ambitious, idealistic. You are going to war to protect your family, to defend your country. I have bad news for you. War is not what you think it is. Being a hero is not what you think it is. Killing is not what you think it is. And loss will hurt much more than you think. You will lose 93 men. You will remember each one's face, each one's name, each one's last words, and you will blame yourself. For years, perhaps forever, you will lose your family. Margaret, Thomas, Emily. The people you fought for will leave before the war, and this will destroy you from within. It will almost kill you. But here's the good news. You will survive. Broken, shattered, but alive. And slowly, you will rebuild. At sea, with Giuseppe, with the community, with yourself. You will be a new Stephan. Not a colonel, but a fisherman. Not a commander, but a student. Not harsh, but sensitive. And this new Stephan will be better. More human. More compassionate. I want to tell you something. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry I took away your innocence. But at the same time, thank you. Because you were strong. You were brave. You were selfless. And those qualities still live within me. You died. But I live. And I will live for you. I will carry your dreams, your hopes, your love. Farewell, young Stephan. Rest in peace with love, the current Stephan. When he finished the letter, he was crying. But this time, they were tears of relief. Tears of acceptance. The old Stephan was gone. Colonel Mitchell was gone. But the new Stephan was here, and he was worth living for. The next day, he read the letter to Dr. Foster. The doctor listened carefully, nodding his head. The woman was scared. She was clutching the baby. She was afraid of us. I tried to calm her down. "We won't hurt you," I said. But she didn't understand English. Then a soldier, a young private, maybe 18, panicked. The woman made a sudden move, the baby cried, and the private pulled the trigger. He paused. Tears streamed down his cheeks. He killed them both, the woman and the baby, with one bullet. It was an accident. The private panicked. But still, they died, and I was the commander. I was responsible. Giuseppe listened quietly. He didn't judge. He didn't accuse. He just listened. The soldier collapsed. Stephan continued. He knelt on the ground and cried. "I'm not a monster," he said. "I didn't want to kill, and I tried to comfort him, but how? How do you comfort someone after they've killed a mother and her baby?" "What did you do?" asked Giuseppe. "I reported it," said Stephan. "I reported it to the high command. Civilian casualties," I said. "During the war," I said. "It was an accident," I said. "And the soldier wasn't punished. Because we were at war. These things happened." "But you felt guilty?" "Yes," said Stephan. "Because I was the commander. I was responsible for that soldier's training. I was responsible for the safety of that village. And I failed. That woman and baby died because of my mistake." Giuseppe left a long silence. Then he spoke. "Stephan, listen to me. That woman and baby didn't die because of your mistake. They died because of war. They died because of fear. They died because of human nature. You did what you could. You tried to protect the village. You tried to train the soldier. But you're not God. You can't control everything. But I was the commander." "Yes, you were the commander. And commanders make tough decisions. They make mistakes. They suffer losses. But that doesn't make them monsters. It just makes them human. That baby," said Stephan, his voice trembling, "was 6 months old. He hadn't learned to walk yet. He hadn't spoken yet. And he died. He died without a chance." "I know," said Giuseppe. "And that's the most tragic thing. But you didn't kill him. The war did. And you didn't start that war. You just fought in it." Stephan buried his face in his hands. "But how can I live with this? How can I wake up every morning, look in the mirror, and not think about that baby?" "You will think about it," said Giuseppe. "You will always think about it. But with time, that thought won't suffocate you. It will just remind you. It will remind you how fragile life is. It will remind you how precious peace is. And maybe, just maybe, that remembrance will make you a better person." Stephan looked at Giuseppe. There was deep understanding in the old man's eyes. He too had seen terrible things. He too had experienced loss. But he too had survived. And he was still alive. "Giuseppe," said Stephan, "how did you do it? How did you live through all this and still be able to smile?" Giuseppe took out his pipe and lit it. He puffed on it. "I chose," he said simply. "Every day I made a choice. Either I would drown in pain, or I would live. And I chose to live, because the dead would want me to live. Maria would want me to live. And you? Margaret, Thomas, Emily. They would want you to live too. How do you know?" "Because they loved you," said Giuseppe. "And love always chooses life, not death." That night, walking back to the cabin, Stephan looked up at the sky. The stars were shining, endless, unchanging, indifferent. "That baby," he whispered to the sky. "I don't know its name. I don't know who it would have been. But I know it was innocent, and I will remember it every day. But now, that memory won't kill me. It will only remind me. It will remind me of my humanity. It will remind me of my need for mercy. It will remind me of my responsibility for peace." When he reached his cabin, he turned to the notebook. He opened a new page, and he wrote, "Today I recounted my worst memory. The woman and baby in Saipan. I carried this pain inside me for years. I never shared it with anyone. But today I told Giuseppe, and telling him made me feel a little lighter. The pain is still there. It always will be. But it no longer suffocates me. It only reminds me. And maybe this is the beginning of healing." Giuseppe said, "Every day, make a choice. drown in the pain or live, and I choose to live. For them, for that baby, for that woman, for the 93 men, for Margaret, Thomas, Emily, I will live. No matter how hard it is, I will live. She put down her pen. She looked out the window. The sea had turned silver in the moonlight. The waves crashed rhythmically against the shore, that familiar sound, that soothing sound, Stephan's lullaby. He lay down on his bed. He closed his eyes. And tonight, before falling asleep, he did something. He prayed. Did he believe in God? He didn't know. But he prayed anyway. God, if you exist, please protect them. Margaret, Thomas, Emily, Johnson, Billy, all 93 of them. And that baby in Saipan. Protect them all. Let them be at peace. And give me strength. Give me the strength to go on living. Because I'm tired. So tired. But I want to live. I want to live for them. Please, help me. When the prayer ended, he felt a little lighter inside. Maybe God had heard him. Maybe he hadn't, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that Stephan had spoken. He had asked for help. And that took courage. That night he slept. He had nightmares, yes. But this time, in the middle of the nightmare, he saw a light. Small, flickering, but it was there, a light of hope. And when he woke up in the morning for the first time, he woke up smiling, because he understood. Recovery wasn't a destination. It was a journey, a long, difficult but meaningful journey, and Stephan wasn't alone on this journey. There was Giuseppe, there was Marco, there was Daniel, there was the whole community, and most importantly, there was himself. Strong, broken, but still alive, and that was enough. Because, said Stephan, you've given me so much. Food, conversation, support, and I want to thank you. Martha's eyes filled with tears. Stephan, you're so kind. Thank you. I thank you, said Stephan. Martha took the fish inside, then came back out. Tonight I'll cook this. And you, Carlos, Antonio, Samuel, Daniel, you're all invited to dinner. That evening, there was a small gathering at Martha's cafe. The fishermen gathered around the table. Martha had cooked the tuna expertly. The grill, the spices, the lemon. It smelled wonderful. As they ate, stories circulated. Carlos recounted his encounter with a shark at sea. Antonio talked about the old days in Italy. Samuel talked about jazz music. Daniel talked about the difficulties of adjusting to life after the war. Then it was Stephan's turn. Everyone was looking at him curiously. Stephan took a deep breath. To speak, to tell, like Giuseppe said, he began, learned something today. From Marco. He told me how he healed after the war. And I realized I'm not alone. Everyone at this table has lost something. Everyone is struggling with something. But we all support each other. And that is healing. He paused, looked around. I felt alone for a long time. When my family died, I thought I was alone in the world. But when I came here, I met Giuseppe. Then all of you. And I realized that family isn't just blood. It's the people you choose. And I choose you. All of you. As family, there was silence. Then Martha started clapping. The others joined in. The applause echoed through the cafe. Giuseppe stood up, raised his glass. To Stephan, he said, to a new member of our family, a brave soldier, a strong survivor, a good fisherman. To Stephan, they all repeated, they drank. They laughed. And Stephan, in that moment, truly felt he belonged. It lasted until late into the night. Stories, songs, laughter. Stephan lived every minute of it. He just existed, and that was enough. As he returned to his cabin, he looked up at the sky. The stars were shining. The moon was almost full. Margaret, he whispered, today was a good day. A day without you, but still good. And I know you would have wanted this. You would have wanted me to be happy, and I'm trying. I'm really trying. When he entered his cabin, he turned to the notebook. He opened a new page, and he began to write. Today I went out to sea with Marco. We caught tuna. The sound of the engine triggered me, but I managed to control it. A small victory, but a victory. Today, Marco shared his war story. He too had suffered losses. He too had suffered pain, but he too had healed, and that gives me hope. Today I brought fish to Martha. to thank her, and she invited us all to dinner. We gathered like a family, and I felt like I belonged. Today I didn't think about the war. Not every second, just sometimes. And that's progress. Today was a good day. He put down his pen. He smiled. For the first time in a long time, he looked to the future with hope, because maybe, just maybe, he was healing, slowly but surely, and that was enough. October 1946, Monterey. As the days passed, Stephan established a routine. Every morning he woke at dawn, made his coffee, wrote something in his notebook, then went out to sea. In the evenings, he ate dinner sometimes with Giuseppe, sometimes with Marco, sometimes alone. And every night before going to bed, he wrote about his day in his notebook. This notebook had become his therapy. Every thought, every feeling, every memory. He wrote it all down. And as he wrote, he seemed to feel lighter. But healing was not a process that progressed in a straight line. There were good days, there were bad days, and sometimes very bad days. The second week of October brought one such day. The morning started as usual. The sun was shining, the sea was calm, the wind was light. A perfect day for fishing. He went 5 miles out with this second chance. He prepared his net, cast his line, and began to wait. While waiting, a smell suddenly came to him. A strange, sharp, familiar smell. Gunpowder, but there was no gunpowder around. Only the sea, the smell of salt, the smell of fish, but Stephan's nose smelled gunpowder. Clearly, his heart raced. His hands trembled. No, he said to himself. No, not again, but it was too late. The flashback had begun. Suddenly, he wasn't in Monterey. He was on Iwo Jima, February 1945, the northern sector of Beach 1. There were explosions all around. There were screams. There were cries of medic, medic. Stephan raised his head from the trench. In front of him, the sand was covered in blood. His men were lying everywhere. Some were moving, some were still. Colonel! Captain Chen was running towards him. We're under heavy fire on the left flank. We need reinforcements. I understand. Stephan shouted. Direct the 2nd platoon to the left flank. 3rd platoon, hold the center. But the orders came too late. They always were. Time worked differently in war. An explosion sounded from the left flank. A huge explosion. Artillery fire! Men! The left flank has collapsed! A voice shouted. Stephan ran. He left the trench and ran toward the left flank. Bullets whistled around him. Bomb fragments flew through the air. When he reached the left flank, the scene was horrific. 10, maybe 15 men lay on the ground. Some were dead, some were dying. One of them was a young sergeant, 22 years old. His name, Johnson. Stephan remembered. Sergeant Johnson. Johnson's leg was gone. Blood was gushing out. His eyes were open, but his gaze was empty. Medic! Stephan shouted. Medic over here. But the medic wasn't coming, because the medic was also wounded, or dead. Stephan couldn't remember. Johnson grabbed Stephan's arm. Colonel, he said weakly, will I make it home? Stephan looked at him. The leg was gone, the blood was draining fast. There was no chance. No chance at all, but he lied. Yes, Johnson, you will make it. You're strong. You'll endure, Johnson smiled. A weak smile. Promise? Promise, said Stephan. 2 minutes later, Johnson died, and Stephan had broken another promise. The 100th promise. Maybe the 1000th. Stephan. Giuseppe's voice brought him back. The old man had brought his own boat alongside the second chance and climbed onto the deck. Stephan was lying on the deck. His hands covered his face, his body trembling. I was at Iwo Jima, he said. Johnson died. I couldn't save him. Giuseppe sat Stephan up. You're not at Iwo Jima now. You're in Monterey. You're with me. You're safe. But Johnson, Stephan began. Johnson is dead, Giuseppe said firmly. Years ago. It wasn't your fault. It was the war's fault. And you're not at war anymore. Stephan looked at Giuseppe. There was determination in the old man's eyes, but also compassion. Will it always be like this? Stephan asked. Will I always have flashbacks? Will I always be stuck in the past? No, Giuseppe said. It will lessen over time. They'll come less often. They'll be less intense. But they may not go away completely. And that's normal. You fought for 12 years, Stephan. 12 years. That leaves marks. Permanent marks. Then how will I live? How will I be normal? Normal doesn't exist, said Giuseppe. Everyone has their own normal. Your normal might be living with flashbacks, but you'll learn to control them. You won't let them be your master. Stephan took a deep breath, then another. The technique Giuseppe had taught him, in, out. Slowly, his heartbeat returned to normal. His hand stopped shaking. That's enough for today, said Giuseppe. Let's head back to the harbor. You need to rest. On the way back to the harbor, Stephan was silent. He was thinking. He was thinking about Johnson. He was thinking about Billy. He was thinking about those 93 men. He had lied to all of them. You'll live, he had said. You'll go home, he had said. But none of them had returned. All of them were there, on those battlefields, one with the earth, and Stephan was here, at sea in the sun, alive. It seemed unfair. When they arrived at the harbor, Daniel was waiting. The young man understood when he saw Stephan's face. Bad day? He asked. Stephan nodded. Flashback. Iwo Jima. Daniel nodded understandingly. I live with it too. Normandy. Sometimes I see the beaches. I see the blood, and for a while, I don't know if it's real or a dream. How do you cope? Asked Stephan. By talking, said Daniel. Here with you guys. Giuseppe, Marco, Marta. Everyone understands. Everyone listens. And that helps. But is it enough? Does it really help? Daniel thought. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But it's better than doing nothing. And as time goes by, it gets a little easier. That evening, Giuseppe took Stephan back to the cabin in the woods. Giuseppe called it the cabin of silence. Here, he said, we'll talk about your war memories. All of them, one by one. Because if you keep them inside, they poison you. But if you let them out, they lose their power. Stephan sat down hesitantly. Where do I start? There are so many memories. Start with the worst one, said Giuseppe, the one that hurts the most. If we talk about that one, the others will come easier, Stephan thought. The worst memory. Which one? There were hundreds of terrible memories, but one was worse than all the others. Saipan, he said finally. July 1944, we entered a village. The Japanese had withdrawn, but there were civilians in the village. Women, children, old people. He paused. His throat tightened. Go on, said Giuseppe. We were checking the village, checking for enemies. And in one house there was a young woman, maybe 25 years old, and a baby, a tiny baby, maybe 6 months old. His eyes filled with tears. But he continued. Stephan wanted to hear those words. But it was hard to believe, because for 12 years he had blamed himself. For every soldier who died, for Billy, for the others, for all of them. How many more? Asked Giuseppe. How many more Billys? Hundreds, said Stephan. Maybe thousands. I remember all their faces. I remember all their names. All of them, with me. And you feel guilty for all of them? Yes. Giuseppe stood up, walked to the window. He looked outside at the forest. Stephan, he said finally, you have to stop carrying this guilt, because this guilt is killing you, slowly but surely. How can I stop? They're dead, I'm alive. It's not fair. Life isn't fair, said Giuseppe. It never has been. But you're lucky to be alive, and you shouldn't waste that luck. You should live for them, for Billy, for the others, for their families. Stephan buried his face in his hands. It's too hard, Giuseppe, too hard. I know, said Giuseppe, coming over and putting his hand on his shoulder. I know, but you're strong. And you're not alone. I'm here. Martha's here. Marco, Carlos, everyone's here. And the sea is here. We're all with you. That evening, when he returned to the cabin, Stephan did something. He opened a new page in the notebook and began to write. Billy Henderson, 19 years old, Texas, died at Guadalcanal. He was a good soldier, a good kid. I won't forget him. Then he wrote another name, and another, and another. That night he wrote for hours, all the names, as many as he could remember. A short note about each one, how they died, their last words, a distinguishing feature. He wrote until morning. 9 pages filled, 93 names. 93 men died under Stephan's command. 93 families lost a son, a father, a husband. 93 lives ended, and Stephan remembered it all. When the sun rose, he put down his pen. His hands were cramped, his eyes were burning, but inside he felt a little lighter. He closed the notebook. Then he pressed it to his chest. I promise you, he whispered, I will live for you. I will keep your memory alive, and I will never forget the sacrifice you made. The next morning, Stephan woke up earlier than usual. But this time, it wasn't from nightmares. He had woken up on his own. And strangely, he felt rested. What he had written last night was still on the table. 9 pages, 93 names. Each one a life, each one a story. He made his coffee and looked out the window. Dawn was breaking. The sea glistened with golden light. A new day was beginning. Giuseppe's words echoed in his ears. By talking. By writing. By telling. Yesterday he had talked about Billy. Today, maybe he could talk about someone else. When he got to the pier, he found Marco. The big man was busy with his boat, mending his nets. Good morning, Stephan, said Marco with his usual energy. It's a beautiful day. Shall we go out together? Stephan hesitated. After what he had experienced yesterday, would the sound of Marco's engine trigger him again? But another of Giuseppe's words came to mind. Feel the fear, but don't surrender to it. Okay, said Stephan. I'll come. Marco's boat was much bigger than the second chance. The engine was louder, too. When it started up, Stephan's heart raced. His hands trembled, but this time he was ready. Breathe in. Breathe in. He repeated to himself. Giuseppe's breathing technique. Slowly, the panic subsided. The engine noise remained just engine noise. It didn't turn into a bomber plane. It was a small victory. Very small, but a victory nonetheless. Are you okay? Asked Marco, looking at him carefully. I'm fine, said Stephan, and this time it felt a little more real. They set out to sea. Marco went 10 miles out. Deep waters. Big fish. We're going tuna fishing today, said Marco. Get ready because it's going to be tough. They prepared the lines. Big, strong lines. The bait was attached, and they began to wait. While waiting, Marco asked, Stephan, what did you do in the war? Giuseppe said you were an officer, but he didn't give any details. Stephan paused for a moment. Talking about the war was still difficult, but maybe Giuseppe was right. Maybe talking about it would be healing. I was a Marine, he said. A colonel. I was a company commander. I fought on the Pacific Front. Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. A lot of places. Marco said thoughtfully. A lot of fighting. Yes, said Stephan. A lot of war. A lot of loss. How many men did you lose? Stephan thought about the notebook he had written in last night. 93, he said. 93 men died under my command, Marco whistled. 93. That's a lot. Each one, said Stephan, his voice filled with deep sorrow. Each one was a person. A life. They had mothers, fathers, maybe wives, children, and they all fought under my orders. They died under my orders. You didn't kill them, said Marco. War killed them. I know, said Stephan, but I was the commander. I was responsible. And sometimes I wake up at night, I see their faces. They're looking at me. It's as if they're asking, why couldn't you save us? Marco dropped his fishing rod and turned to Stephan. Listen to me, he said, his tone serious. I fought too in Italy, in 1943, in Mussolini's army. Then we switched sides. The Italians joined the Allies. I kept fighting, and I lost men too. Maybe not as many as you, but I lost them. And I know how you feel. Stephan looked at him in surprise. You too? Yes, said Marco, and I blamed myself for years. But then one day an old priest told me something. He said, Marco, you're not God. You can't control everything. But there is one thing you can do. Keep their memories alive. Live for them, and that is the greatest honor. Living for them, Stephan repeated. Giuseppe had said the same thing. Harrison too. Martha as well. Everyone was saying the same thing. Maybe they were right. Maybe living owed them that. Staying alive wasn't a crime. It was an opportunity. So what about you? Stephan asked. How did you come to terms with this? Marco smiled. Fishing, he said simply. The sea. Every day I get in my boat, I go out to sea. And at sea the war stays away. Just me, the fish in the ocean. Simple, peaceful, healing. It does the same for me, said Stephan. The sea saves me. A little more each day. Good, said Marco. Then keep it up. Go out to sea, fish, live. And one day you'll realize that war no longer controls you. You control the war. At that moment, one of the lines jerked. A strong pull. Marco sprang into action. Tuna! He shouted. A big tuna. The struggle began. Marco held the rod, pulling, letting go, pulling again. Stephan helped, keeping the rod steady. The fish was strong. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. The struggle continued, and Stephan realized, right then, he wasn't thinking. He wasn't thinking about the fight. He wasn't thinking about Billy. He wasn't thinking about Margaret. He was just living that moment, holding the line, helping Marco, fighting the fish. It was exactly as Giuseppe had said. The sea challenges you now, and now it heals you. Finally, the fish broke the surface. A huge tuna, maybe 100 pounds. Yes, Marco shouted. Magnifico. Together they hauled the fish onto the boat. The fish thrashed on the deck. Its eyes wild, its mouth open. It was fighting its last fight for life. Marco took the knife, but didn't hesitate. He turned to Stephan. Do you want to do it? Stephan hesitated for a moment. Killing the fish, taking a life. He had done it many times in battle. He had taken many lives, both enemy and friend. But this was different. This was for survival, for food. It was part of the cycle. Yes, he said. I'll do it. He took the knife. He looked at the fish. Thank you, he whispered. Your sacrifice will feed us. Then with a quick, clean movement, he killed the fish. Painlessly, respectfully. The fish flapped once more and lay still. Marco patted Stephan on the shoulder. Good job, he said. Respectful, right. On the way back, Stephan watched the sunset. The sky was shades of orange, pink, purple. The clouds were like a painting. Marco, he said, can I ask you something? Ask, said Marco. After the war, do you have nightmares? Marco paused for a long moment. Then he nodded. Yes, sometimes. Not as often as before, but still. I see a bomb exploding, or a friend dying, or... He paused. Or my mother crying. When they told her I was dead, you died? Stephan asked, shocked. No, said Marco, but the wrong information was given. For a while my family thought I was dead. Then the truth came out. But that time was hell for my mother. And I blame myself for putting her through that pain. But it wasn't your fault. I know, said Marco, but you still feel it. Because causing pain to those you love is worse than dying in battle. Stephan nodded. He understood Marco. Because he too had caused pain to Margaret, Thomas, Emily. He had left them alone. He hadn't been able to protect them. So now, he asked, how do you feel now? Now, said Marco thoughtfully, I feel at peace. Not completely, but mostly because I understand that the past cannot be changed. Only the future can be shaped, and I want to shape my future well. When they arrived at the harbor, Giuseppe was waiting. When he saw the tuna, his eyes lit up. Mamma mia, it must be 100 kilos.
Great catch!
Stephan killed it, said Marco, respectfully, Properly. Giuseppe looked at Stephan and smiled. Bravo, you're learning. That evening they divided the tuna into 3 parts. 1 part for Marco, 1 part for Giuseppe, 1 part for Stephan. Stephan took his part to Martha. Martha, he said, this is for you. We caught it today. It's fresh. Martha looked at the fish, then at Stephan. It's beautiful, she said. But why did you bring it to me?